Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Beautiful people. Happy Thursday, y'all. All right. Let's see here. All right. Well, my name is Jessica Marie, founder and certified AI consultant, and I help businesses protect profits with AI-powered solutions. Now, before I get into today's nitty-gritty, what I want to do is I want to tell you guys why you should listen to me because I have a lot to talk about today. And I want to give you the backstory to who I am because I think it'll help you guys appreciate all the things that I'm telling you today. So let me get started. Let me open up this chat real quick. All right. So I was born in New York City. I was born in the East Village of Manhattan, but I was raised in corporate America. I spent about 13 years at Bloomberg Financial, and I did all of these roles: help desk, accounts payable, receivables, capital expenses. I found myself at the table with staff accountants. I don't know how that happened, but I learned what a general ledger was, how to reallocate invoice expenses. And then the last 6 years of my career there, I spent in IT. Bloomberg had purchased SAP, which is a German financial software, and I then became a liaison between various departments to help them, to help support them. I did process improvement there. I did global process training and a lot of project management. Now, the first project that I was given was, hold on one second, I need to,
Hey,
uh,
because can you take off the split screen so we can see the
yeah,
presentation? There
yep,
you are. Perfect. Thank
yeah,
you.
I thought I did. Sorry about that. All right. So the first project I was given at Bloomberg was to convert people that were using a ticketing system within that software, SAP, over to a Bloomberg ticketing system. Now, every single department had their own ticketing system. That was created by their R&D, research and development department. And so what I did was I then converted over 500 users globally. So Bloomberg is a global company. And so that's where I learned how to build reporting, analyze data. I was doing virtual training before virtual training was even a thing, created service level agreements, process improvement, a lot of stuff in that, just in that one project. I was then partnered with a consultant at PwC. And while Bloomberg is a private company, they had to have some type of compliance. And what we did was we documented the entire procure to pay process. And what that meant was talking to purchasing, talking to shipping and receiving, talking to sales, talking to the accounts payable department, and understanding what that process looked like. And this exercise alone taught me how to identify inefficiencies in a process, how to identify risks. I was then partnered with a security consultant for SAP, where I was taught how to build security roles. And with that, I had to then create a approval process, right? Anybody outside of the department that wanted access maybe to a cost center, a general ledger, whatever, I had to create a process for that. So we did a lot of user acceptance testing. With all of that, I was running a wedding and event planning business for 9 years. And after that, I became ordained and I facilitated a lot of wedding ceremonies. I did all of that alone by myself. I had a team on the day of, but I did the marketing, the sales, the contracting, the vendor management, the networking, all of the things by myself. And then I stepped into the parking industry, the second part of my career. And this is where I fell in love with operations. And here I managed multi-million dollar portfolios. I did forecasting, budget management, vendor management, a lot of client retention. That's huge in the parking industry, and payroll. And my biggest portfolio was for the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, which was a $27 million portfolio, had about 57 locations there with 3 major garages. My last 3 years of my parking industry career, I was then a vendor. So I sat on the opposite side of the table where I started this was a startup. They were a venture off of a company that was already in business for 30 years. And they hired me to build a call center. And what we realized was I was employee number one. So we needed a human resources department, payroll, benefits, all the things. And we also needed process behind that. So I really helped them build that foundation of the business. And what I found that as I was doing this and all, these 2 decades of experience that I'm sharing with you, and there's pockets of other things, but all of this just led me to what I do today. And that is I find and I fix the hidden drains costing you time and money in your business. So what does that mean? That basically means that where is your process missing something where it's costing you money? And so what I did was I founded APMJ so that I can do that thing. And I also became a certified AI consultant last year so that I can then leverage artificial intelligence and teach people how they can protect the money that they're making in their businesses. So let's talk about profit real quick, just a little quick here. So how do profits work, right? We all know it's revenue coming in, whether it's from your sales, any services that you do, you subtract your expenses. So any money going out, rent, salaries, supplies, right? And then if you have a positive number at the end, then you have a profit. If it's a negative, you have a loss. And if it's just zero and it evens out, then you're breaking even, right? So we know how a profit works. But what is a profit leak? Basically, a profit leak is just any invisible drain that's quietly eating away at that profit, right? And it could be a number of things, but just to name a few, it could be subscriptions that you're not tracking, maybe bad data, maybe you're not following up on stuff, maybe you have inefficiencies, maybe through communication or systems. I want to give you guys some real numbers. I'm very data driven here. And so these numbers here. So Deloitte in 2023, they audited 20,000 transactions. And what they found was in their billing area alone, they were losing about 3 to 4% of their revenue. Why? Because there was just a billing mismatch. So they were leaking money. And so MGI, McKinsey Global Institute, came back and said, yeah, about almost half a percent of companies leak about 1 to 5% of EBITDA. EBITDA is your earnings before interest, your taxes, your depreciation, or your amortization. They said that companies are losing 1 to 5% of EBITDA from that same inefficiency. And then according to the IDC, the International Data Corporation, they said through research that inefficiencies are costing companies anywhere between 20 to 30% of their revenue annually. And so this is the stuff that doesn't make headlines. This is the stuff that nobody really talks about, right? We talk about revenue. How do we get that cash flow? How do we sell? How do we market? But nobody's really talking about this stuff that's quietly eating away at your profit. So we're taught to sell more, market more, post more, but rarely are we taught to see more. The truth is not the lack of revenue that's holding most people back. It's the operational waste that's hiding under the surface. Awareness creates abundance, and until you see the leaks, you won't be able to stop them. So how do we create that awareness? Well, what if you're just starting out and you're like, all right, Jessica, I don't even know where to begin, right? So now we leverage artificial intelligence. So here's a prompt. You can take a photo of it. It'll be on YouTube later, but we're going to ask ChatGPT to give us 10 common areas where small businesses unknowingly lose money or waste time. Now, why do we want to do this? Because maybe we don't know, right? We don't know where to begin. And so we want ChatGPT to return it as a checklist with some quick diagnostic questions. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to copy this prompt. I'm going to plug it in to ChatGPT. Thank you, Anna. All right, so here you go. So here is what ChatGPT is giving us. Untracked operational costs. What is the question? Do you have any monthly reports that clearly show where every dollar goes, including subscriptions, small expenses, fees? Manual repetitive tasks. How many hours per week are you spending doing things that could be automated, like data entry, invoices, follow up? Uh, Lack of process standardization. If someone new joined your team tomorrow, would they know exactly how to complete recurring tasks without asking you, right? Are you that bottleneck in your company, in your business? Poor customer follow-up. How many leads or past customers have gone cold because no one followed up or tracked communication? Pricing or proposal inconsistencies. Are your quotes and invoices standardized, or does pricing vary by who prepares them, causing profit leaks, right? So what does that mean? Do you have any standard procedures in your business? What about data? Do you have any data-driven decisions? When was the last time you reviewed metrics like cost per lead, customer acquisitions, profit per service? What about disorganized project or tax management? Is any of this resonating with anybody? Do you have centralized systems where maybe all tasks, deadlines, and updates are tracked? And finally, what's your tech stack look like? Are you paying for overlapping tools? And I'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. So this is a great start, right? If you don't know where to begin, where to look in your business, this prompt is a great start. And you guys you'll see this presentation later. So the question is, which one of these do you feel is in your business right now? You don't have to answer it. If you know, you can drop it in the chat. But if you fixed it, what kind of money or time can you get back, right? Like, let's think about that, because time is also money. Peter Drucker says that you can't manage what you don't measure. And I love that because it is true. If you're not measuring something, how are you going to be able to manage it? Some people think that the more they hustle, it's going to work for them, but it won't. It won't help them because we've been sold this lie that the answer is working harder, where instead, increased effort in a broken system will only amplify the existing disorganization. And that leads to more chaotic outcomes rather than improved results. I always like to say, if you approach your business like a hustler, you'll always be chasing. But if you treat your business like a brand, you will start to lead. Now, studies show that businesses with streamlined operations report that they have anywhere between 15 to 25% higher productivity and experience faster decision making and fewer errors. That is the power of having clarity in your business, right? So that's what we're talking about today. How do we get clarity in what is going on in our business? We want to know what is going on and not only just what our employees are doing, right? We want to know, like, how does that tie to numbers, dollars? So can I tell you guys a story real quick? Can I tell you guys a story? This is going to help. All right. Awesome. So remember I said I managed that $27 million portfolio and I had some garages, right? So it was three major garages and the rest of them were all just open lots, what they call surface lots, right? But every single location was attached to a train system, right? So this is Quincy Adams. This is in Massachusetts when I worked there. This is just one garage. Okay. I had two others. And again, all the other ones totaling up to 57. Now, the black and white photo that you see, that's the inside. That's just so that people can travel through there and get to the different levels. The lower right-hand corner, that is parking on the outside of the garage, right? So not only do we have that massive monster garage, we also had parking on the outside. So this was a huge operation. Now the photo that you see in the red, that's where all of our people left, right? The people that parked, they left. And off to the left side, which is not photographed here, there was an office. And when I took over this portfolio, obviously I had to understand what was going on in the operation. And in order to understand what's going on in an operation, especially as big as this, you have to look at the numbers. So I pulled a bunch of reports. I was looking at the data. And what I realized was that the transaction of the gate going up and down was a little bit too much. So what did I do? I went to the office, looked at this log, right? So the process was anytime somebody manually lifted a gate to let somebody out, which basically meant they're manually lifting it by hand, that to me means that somebody's leaving the garage without paying. So I probed. The staff understood what was going on. And it turned out that people were saying that they lost their wallet and they couldn't pay to park. And so what the staff was doing was they were letting the people out without paying. And so they were manually lifting the gate, right? So what did I do? I created a simple form, and it was just like a customer issue form. I wanted to understand what was going on. Now, fortunately enough, this operation, because it was the MBTA, which is a government entity, they were linked to the Department of Motor Vehicle. So we were able to send them invoices through the software that we used. So the process became anytime a driver comes up and says they don't have money, they'd have to come into the office, fill out this form. My assistant would then grab all of those forms at the end of the week and he would manually enter them in to the system. Now, the system would automatically send out the invoices, but the manual part of it was entering them into the system. And the result was revenue went up by 25% just because of that simple form, just because I was looking at the data and I was paying attention, right? So it goes back to that quote, you can't manage what you're not tracking, right? What you're not measuring. And so just because of that form, the revenue was able to increase. So of course the client was happy. But then one day I was sitting at my desk, no audio. Can you guys hear me? Somebody says no audio. Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
there's
we're hearing you.
okay. So I was sitting at my desk one day looking through all of these forms, and I realized on the issue, somebody wrote that tap cards weren't working and started realizing that that was a trend. I said, I understood what that meant, but I didn't understand why that was an issue. Well, what did I do? I went to the data. I started looking at reports, started pulling reports, and what I realized was card holders, there were card holder errors, there were lost tickets. I started uncovering a lot more. I started realizing that there was a lot of lost tickets. The ticket machines were empty, right? Which means that then those lanes are going down. Um, and so what I realized in this exercise was that the staff needed to be trained. Now, I did all of this manually. This was before we had AI. I did all of this manually. But can you imagine if I had artificial intelligence in this moment, what I could have done? If I had artificial intelligence, I could have reduced the time that I analyzed these forms. I could have identified the trends quicker. I could have created the training material faster, right? Because now, since the team, I understood that the employees needed training, I now had to create all of this manually, right? I could have built a support GPT for them. I could have done so many things. So AI helps us see what we can't see, right? When we're in that grind, right? In that moment, I was in that grind. I was trying to learn the operation. I was trying to get my hands wrapped around it. And it'll spot the efficiencies faster so that we can focus on what really matters. Now, Maya Angelou says it best, when you know better, you can do better. And that's exactly that, right? So if we're leveraging artificial intelligence to help us know better, because we may know everything, but what AI does for us, it helps us, it amplifies that for us. It gives us a little bit more and we're like, oh, okay, I didn't even think about that. So I created this very simple framework that I use with my clients, right? There is a method behind this, but for time, we're only going to talk about the framework. And it's just audit, fix, and automate. This is a framework that you can definitely apply to your business, right? So we're going to go through it. We want to make the invisible visible. And so the formula that I use is your workflow, which is describing what you're doing today, how you're doing the thing today, right? Plus your prompt or your fix. What exactly are you telling AI you need help with, right? And then what tool are you going to use to get that done, to get that information, to get that help, to give you then that clarity, right? So we're talking about making the invisible visible. So now let's diagnose a real workflow. Okay, so the workflow here is the customer calls, an agent logs the ticket, the manager reviews it, tickets reassigned, customer calls back, then there's a follow-up email, the issue is closed, right? If we follow the formula, we're going to add that to a prompt. So we're going to add the prompt that says, analyze this customer service workflow, identify 3 inefficiencies, and 1 AI assisted fix for each. But now I want to give it some data, some numbers, right? Because again, we're trying to find out, like, are we losing money in this process, right? In this workflow. So I say return it as a leak, fix, expected impact, and I give it the data. So I say we take 1,000 calls a month And each call costs us about $6. And the agents are taking about 8 to 12 minutes every time to resolve a call. And we have lots of repeat customer complaints coming in and about 5 drop calls every single day. Tell me how much money I'm losing. All right. So we're going to use a tool called napkin.ai. So I'm going to take the prompt, and here is napkin.ai. We're going to go in. Here's a new napkin, and we're going to draft it with AI. All we're going to do is plug that in. So that entire prompt, we're plugging it in. Now we continue. Now, some people might say, can we just use ChatGPT? Absolutely, you can. However, Napkin AI is a whole different level. And let me show you. Quickly, is it giving us? Here's the customer service workflow analysis. And AI, okay, it's pulling me down because it's still writing. Hold on. All right, it's done. All right, so customer service workflow analysis and AI. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. All right, here we go. This document analyzes a customer service workflow, identifying 3 key inefficiencies. So it's basically telling me this is what the document is doing because this is what you asked, right? Here's your workflow inefficiency. So it's telling you, your one of your leaks is that you have a manual ticketing log, right? Your agents are manually logging tickets after each call. Here's your fix. Use an AI-powered ticketing summarization and categorization process. Implement an AI-powered system that automatically transcribes and summarizes it, right? Then AI uses that, NLP, which is that natural language processing, to categorize it. The agents can review it and edit it if they need to. And then your expected impact would be that you're reducing ticket logging by at least up to 3 minutes, maybe, improving that data accuracy, right? So if you have AI transcribing all of that for you, now your agent isn't saying, well, what did you say? Typing it in, right? Faster ticket routing and increased agent capacity. It also tells you your next leak is inefficient ticket assignment, right? The manager reviews the ticket process, indicates that the tickets are not initially routed. It goes on and on and on. Another leak, repeat customer complaints. So it's giving you the description of what that leak is. It's giving you that, it's identifying that for you, giving you the fix, and telling you what your expected outcome would be, right? Now, the one thing that I absolutely love about Napkin is that it will create graphs for you, right? And so here where you have the financial loss calculation, because I did ask it to tell me how much money I would, am I losing? So it's saying, let's calculate the current financial losses. Total calls per month, 1,000. Costs per call, $6. The average amount to resolve, 8 to 12 minutes. Drop calls, 5. So working days per month, assuming 20 working days. So now it's giving you all of this, and it's telling you all the way at the bottom that your total, right here, your total estimated monthly losses are now $6,600 based on all of that information. Because what it did was it broke it down. It broke it down, assuming 50% reduction in ticket reassignment, takes about 5 minutes. Let's assume 20 tickets. So it goes on and on and on. So one of the things I love about it is that if you had to then take this, and this can branch out to so many different use cases, but you can take this and you can create either a standard operating procedure from this. You can then use this to maybe have your roundtable meetings with your staff so that you understand what's going on. This can turn into a key performance indicator where you're saying, this is where we were, this is what we implemented, now we're tracking it, right? Because this gave you that. So let's say here, potential savings, let's create a graph from just this, right? And we can do this throughout the whole thing, but I just want to show you for presentation purposes. So you click on that little, I think it was a bolt, and it gives you the options on how you want to present this, right? Because the data in words is great, but sometimes the visual just gives it more of an effect. So, let's just say, I don't know, maybe we want, let's see, maybe we can just use this one. And we'll just say potential savings, 20% reduction, calls on repeat, complaints. In any case, you can do this with any of them as long as you see this blue line and this little bolt, anything that you think is of value, you can create that. And then you can export this, do all the things you need to do with this. So that's number one. So the goal is not to be busy, guys, right? We don't want to be busy. The goal is to be effective. Now let's talk about clarity a little bit more and the chaos that's behind it. Now the all the mess you see off to the left side, that's just a list of things that every one of us has to do in our business. Everybody has a list, whether it's compiled on a notebook, it's transcribed from a meeting, whatever it is, we all have a list, right? And it could be a little bit overwhelming. And so if we use the same formula where it's the workflow, prompt, and AI, in this case, it's what is it? So in this case, it's the messy data. So what's the prompt? We're going to say, well, we want to organize this into a weekly workflow by category, owner, priority, etc. And then what AI tool are we going to use? So let's pull this prompt. So I'm going to copy this whole thing here. And we're going to use Notion AI to help us with this. So we're going to plug this in. That's my prompt. And we are going to see Notion do its magic. Y'all, this, and I'll talk about how this protects profits. But remember, I said before that time is money. Like, I want us to help understand that time is money. So what it's doing, it is creating that weekly workflow for us. And when you see this, it is amazing because, again, can we open up a spreadsheet and do it? Yeah, we can. But when nowadays we do have Gemini in our Google suite. But this napkin for me, I like because you can create like a portal for your business, right? You can create a portal where you have all your documents. You can even create a portal for your employees. So say you have training documents or you have, original documents that you use, maybe like stationery, whatever it is, you have a central place for it versus just um, maybe sharing like a folder in your Google Drive, right? Now here it is. Let's open this up. How beautiful is this? Guys, look at this. Here's your complete workflow. All of your tasks are here. It categorized it for you. So now it's saying clean office is operations, order business cards is marketing, backup files to Google is IT, update onboarding SOP is HR. It'll assign it. So, I'm the only one here, so it only has my name. But if you have a team, it has a bunch, you can assign it. Your priority, it gave you some due dates, which you can change your due dates, obviously, but it's already here. And here are some blockers and to do, right? So it's all done for you. The drop downs, everything is done for you. And it took minutes, not even. I think it took maybe like under a minute. So now we have that clarity. So why does this protect profit? Because Notion AI reconstructed that chaos into a clear plan for you. So it didn't just organize your business, it protected your profit because every messy note, every unstructured meeting, every scattered task always leads to a hidden leak. So what Notion did for us, it turned that chaos into clarity so that we stop losing money and we start scaling smarter. Now, every leak that you close, whether it's time, money, or energy, will always directly add to your profit. And that's what stewardship looks like in a business. James Clear says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And this is why I'm so passionate about talking about this to business owners, because if they just had this information, they would understand how crucial operations is to their business. Yes, Kirk, very great book. Let's talk about tools. AI, we have so many shiny tools, right? So many robust tools. The problem that I always see when I talk to businesses, they go and they subscribe to a tool with all the bells and whistles. But at the end of the day, sometimes they don't use all of it, right? They pay for the softwares that they rarely use. And on average, companies only use about half of the tools that they pay for, right? So it's like having a gym membership you're never going to, right? And for big businesses, they lose millions of dollars. What if you have a team and you have a software that every single user you add to it is a license that you have to pay for? Now, what if you don't have a offboarding process in your HR department where anytime an employee either leaves the company or is terminated in some way, that you're tracking it and you have a checklist. And on your checklist, it says you have to uh, cancel that subscription, that license for that user, right? That is a silent leak. If you don't have a process in place for when people leave the company with all of the things that need to get done when that person leaves, that is a silent leak that you will not realize until later on. You will realize it, but by that time, you've already lost some money. So before you start cutting people or any big expenses, Mika, check your tech. You might be surprised how much money you can save by canceling what you don't use. So let's reflect for a minute. Again, take a second and think about a recurring task that's in your business that's draining your time or is frustrating you. And then think about how can AI be applied to that, right? Like, could AI handle 80% of that, right? We saw how, number one, if we don't know where to start, we'll use ChatGPT and we'll give it a prompt asking it, hey, help me, right? And for those of you that came late, it's just, hey, the prompt is list 10 common areas where businesses unknowingly lose money or waste time and return it as a checklist with some diagnostic questions, just so that it can get your gears going, just so that it can get you thinking, where should I be looking in my business? The areas are endless. I will say that. And as I went over my entire 2 decades of experience and all the things that I've done, I am very passionate about this because I can hear what you're doing in your business. I can quickly identify where you could be losing money. So that's why I'm passionate about it. And that's why I talk about this all of the time. Robert Collier says that success in small efforts repeated day in and success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. I used to be a personal trainer, and this is the same thing I used to tell people when they wanted to lose weight. And people want to lose weight, they don't have patience. But what I would always say is that you're looking for longevity, right? Like the quick fixes, that's never really going to be long term. But if you change something in the way you did, whether you stopped maybe eating sugar, maybe if you started portioning your meals, just that one little change eventually over time leads to bigger results. And so just like Robert Collier says, success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. I like to say that clarity turns confusion into confidence, and the confidence will turn into profit. So we covered, I know we went through this really quick and there was a lot. So I think we have I think we can go through something a little bit again. But what we covered was, Ebony, similar to your tagline, awesome. We covered what the profit leaks are, why hustle will not fix them, okay? How AI can help you see and stop them faster, because the truth is, your next big profit jump might not come from selling more. It might come from simply stopping what's silently stealing from you. So again, we went through ChatGPT, right? We used Notion, excuse me, we used Napkin, right? So Napkin gave us all of this information that we could definitely use either to create an SOP document from. We can use it to plug in a messy operation, right? So if we just dictated to a document and said, this is how we do our thing, this is how we run our business, give it to Napkin, it will then tell you where your inefficiencies are, what you need to approve, and how you can apply AI to it. Now, if you don't want to apply AI to it, just take that part out of the prompt. But in this case, right, the goal here is to leverage artificial intelligence because that's the world that we live in today, because it's going to amplify what we already know. I always like to say it's AI plus your expert, right? So AI plus the expert, because AI is only as good as you. And then finally, we used Notion to take a long laundry list of things that we have to get done and just plug it in here. Now, Notion has a lot more capability, which is why I love it, because it is backed by artificial intelligence. And so the starting point here to building your task list into kind of like a project plan is kind of how you want to approach stuff, right? Because if you have a list of things and you just you were just using no, oh well, Ebony, listen, using Notion as a Word document, then you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table. But yes, you start using it with the capabilities of artificial intelligence. It's going to be a game changer for you. And like I said, you can create a portal, like I've created a portal. Where's my portal? Like I have a portal here, all of my stuff for the company, everything I do is in there. So that is it. I didn't think I was going to run through this that quick, but if anybody wants me to run through something again, tell me and I will do that, because this type of presentation you can go really deep. So I was afraid that I was going to just kind of go overboard, but let me do it all over again. Thank you. Thank you guys. So does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Karen. Go back a slide. Okay, so I don't know what slide you want me to go to, but what is Napkin? So Napkin is a tool where you can either use artificial intelligence to draft something for you. You can import a document and then, or you could just use it as a blank napkin, and it's backed by artificial intelligence. So you could literally just do anything. Thank you, Heather. You can do anything with this. So if I said, let's just use a blank one. Uh, Hold on. We'll just say here. And I said, let's just click one of the prompts here. The best practices for hiring interview. Why I love this better than ChatGPT for this type of situation is because ChatGPT kind of just becomes very, it doesn't give you all the meaty stuff like Napkin does. And then Napkin also, if you have any data within your document, you can turn it into a workflow. So here, I'll show you this here where I have a customer service workflow here. Is this it? Let's see. This is not it. Let me show you guys real quick. Uh, hmm. Where is my workflow here? Here it is. How to transform a broken customer service. So this is one that I did, and I basically wanted to understand how do we, okay, so this one's not, okay, wow. Where is it? Did I delete it? Oh no. I hope I didn't delete it. Let's see. Mm, I think I deleted it, guys. I have it as a PDF. But in any case, like I said, so here's here it is. How to transform a broken one. Hopefully this is it. Let's see, is this it? Yeah. So here is one that I created for a broken customer service, right? And so thank you, Corinne. I just didn't remember the name of it. So here it is. It's analyzing the customer complaints in a call center. And so what I did was just based on this text here, I went ahead and I created this chart, right? So it's telling me the call handling. It's basically telling me all the things, right? And then here it's how do you calculate the cost of a broken customer service? So here it's giving me that average call, right? And so what I did was I was able to break it out. And so this is good either if you're presenting this to somebody or, you're using this for any visuals. Um, here it's giving me my old cost versus the new cost. So this is why I like napkin, because you can do all of this in just one napkin. Let me see what else I see in here.
We have a question from Miss Evelyn. Miss Evelyn, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. First, I want to say this has been an awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question. What is a good tool to use to find hidden subscriptions? Because I know you mentioned about a lot of money that was leaking out. I know for me, it seemed like for years of doing different things and adding on subscriptions and different, it could be different things for graphics or whatever. I've been trying to go through manually to find any expenses that I've been paying for that I don't need anymore. But can you recommend a tool that can do that?
Let me think off the top of my head. I know that there's ones that you can put on your phone for like personal uses for like, if you like you're not watching like Netflix or Hulu or Disney Channel or whatever it is. Um, let me think about that. Let me think about that,
Okay, thank
Evelyn. Off the top of my head, yeah, let
thank
me think about that.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question?
Yes, please. Hi. Thank you so much, Jessica Marie, for the lovely presentation. My question is, how do you create portals for many people, or, how do you segment it? How did you do yours?
Are you talking about in Notion?
In the napkin as well. You did say you have different clients or so, and you created portals. You showed us something on the left side.
And submit the application now.
So on
And that's how you submit a household member, a spouse, however, whatever you want to call it. Now, I will say there are a lot of agents who do sell children policies.
Hey, Daedrin, I think
This is coming up frequently. This is why I'm mentioning
I'm trying
it.
to find whose mic it is.
Multiple policies. You're going to enter in each of those policies. You're not going to combine them. You're going to enter them all in. No policy should be combined into one. It should always be separate policies. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to go check your business. So starting back from the home page.
I can't tell.
Okay, it was Eileen. She's
Okay. Okay.
Apologies for that.
Okay. So what Napkin does for you, it helps you create like comprehensive documentation. And also you can prompt it to, as I showed in the presentation, help you identify maybe inefficiencies in your process. So you can basically prompt it to do whatever it is that you need it to do, and it'll create a document from that. And what Napkin does is it allows you to create visuals, right? So visuals like, graphs, bar graphs, whatever, to be able to communicate um, the the information in a visual form. Now with Notion is it's basically like, I don't know. It's really kind of like a folder on steroids, I guess I could say. I don't know the technical or the like the official campaign to describe it. But if you wanted to create like a portal, right? What I would say is, so for example, if when I say portal, right? So for when you have a team, if you want to share a bunch of documents, right? And typically a lot of people just use like a shared drive in maybe Google or maybe Microsoft 365, whatever, right? And so these documents are kind of siloed and you have to kind of move through folder, right? So, when we talk about time, we want something that's seamless. So, I'm all about how easy can we locate something, right? How fast can we do it? And if you went ahead and created, so say like, I have a portal here and it has all of these things. And inside of all of these pages, there's additional stuff. So now this is my portal. This is where everything is. You can do that and create a workspace for your team. Because what you can do is you can then change this and you can create, you can turn this into a web link that you give to your team. And now it's like a web thing. So, that thought process for me comes from that corporate world. It comes from that parking industry where we had portals where everyone was able to go in and just type and find something. And that's the difference. Now, can you do that with Google Suite? Absolutely. You can go into your Drive, you can type stuff, and they've been definitely updating it. I think today there was some updates I got to look at, but they've been updating it to work with you a little bit more, just streamline your workflow. But that's what I would say you can use these for. Does that make sense? I hope that answers your question.
All right. And we have another question from Joy.
Sure.
Go ahead and unmute Joy.
Okay, good afternoon. Okay, I heard you say Google Suites. So is Napkin comparable to Google Suites?
So your Google Suite is just your Microsoft Excel, your Word, anything that's Google based. So when you say it as a whole, it's just a suite. Comparable to Napkin, I mean, sorry, to Notion. I wouldn't compare it. I would just say it's just different. It depends on what your goal is, right? So if you're using excuse me, your Google Drive, you know that you have all your folders. You can use your search to find something. But now what Google does, the Gemini in Google, right? Because so if you have the at least the basic business version, you will have Gemini. If you just have regular Gmail, you don't get the Gemini with it. If you are a business, I'd recommend even just using the very basic subscription. And so what Gemini does is you can say, hey, this folder here, give me a summary of everything that's in that folder. Or if you have a Word document open, you can say, give me, expand on this, right? Highlight maybe something in your document and ask Gemini to expand on that. So what they're doing is they're trying to kind of create a central place for everything, right? So try to move everybody away from kind of always using ChatGPT and leverage, and we're always going to leverage it no matter what. But it helps that process a little bit faster. And Gemini, I think, because it's brand new, I find that it's not as great as a ChatGPT, but it all depends on, really what you're doing. Because what you can do with Gemini as well, if you are using like a Google Sheet, right? In in Google, you can also ask it to create the spreadsheet for you and say, look, I want to analyze my financials and this is what I want to see. Create this sheet. What I find with Gemini is the prompting, it's a little quirky. So you have to be very literal with it. That's the only difference that I see. Yeah.
And which AI is good for utility bills?
For you, what do you mean?
Like to analyze a bill or how to lower a utility bill? For
Well,
your
I would
business?
say I mean, I think what I would say is to analyze your bill. I mean, you should get the statements that give you that. But if you wanted to do it yourself, say like you would grab all of your statements. And what I would do is I would just plug them all into ChatGPT and say, here are all my statements for the past, 6 months utility. Tell me what your trends you see. Do you see any discrepancies? Is there anything that I should be reaching out to the company for, right? So say it's PSEG and say, are there any fees that you see on my bills that doesn't seem correct? Right? Because that's the thing too, especially with, PSEG. I just realized the other day that if I don't have PSEG come out and upgrade the meter for a building that I don't even own, I get charged every month. I didn't even realize that because I wasn't really analyzing my bill that way until I
Yeah.
actually did, right? So yeah, if that is you, congratulations. I give you a lot of kudos. But yeah, that's how I would approach that situation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, all right. Time for one more question. So Casey, go ahead and unmute.
Hi there. Thank you so much for this. This has just been incredibly, incredibly helpful. I have two questions actually. So I saw the Notion part and I didn't even know Notion can do all that. So Could you go? I think you pasted something into Notion. I think I missed that part. And then do you have like a suite of tools? Because you have mentioned so many great tools. Is there like a centralized place where you list out the tool, like the AI tools that you've been using?
I don't have a list of the ones that I use. I just know the ones that I use just based
Mm-hmm.
on the nature of my business. So it's always definitely ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
Napkin, it depends on what I'm trying to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Notion again, because I kind of use it in place of a Google Drive.
Right.
Other tools that I use are Pictory.ai, because what I also do is I transform, like, say, a standard operating procedure document into and convert it into a video. So this way you have like
Oh.
yeah, so this way you have an evergreen video for your staff, right? So obviously you're always going to train people, but can you save time with having them look at a video first of what you're going to train them on? So this way they already have that, that knowledge base of what the business, what their task at hand is, right?
You
So
said it was Pictory.ai. I'm sorry.
yeah, Pictory.ai. Another tool that I like to use is Gamma. Gamma, it's, I think it started off as just presentations, but you can plug in your financials in there and you can create a deck from it. So say you're a business trying to go for funding, you can use Gamma to then create a beautiful presentation for you based on your financials.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more that you can do with Gamma, but that's also another tool that I leverage, because what I do is, say I leverage a chat GPT, right? So we talk about stacking tools, and I'll say this before we go. There's understanding how to use artificial intelligence is one thing, right? The other thing is
Right.
how to use it intentionally, right? And that's a lot of what I talk about. But then also, how do you stack tools, right?
Right.
So
Right.
how do you use every tool, leverage it with each other to create that process and that workflow that you need to get that task done, right? So for example, if you had a standard operating procedure for a task in your business for a staff member, and you
Mm-hmm.
use ChatGPT to create that original SOP document with all the things. You just gave it a mess and you said, "Hey, chat, this is what I do. This is what I do. I need you to organize it, create an SOP." You can take that and you can plug that into Gamma. Gamma then can create a nice presentation for you. Now, what I
Mm-hmm.
would do is I'd take that presentation and I would plug it into Pictory.ai, because what Pictory.ai is going to do, it is going to create a narrator for you. So now it is presenting on your behalf, and it doesn't read off of each slide. What it does is it just narrates, and it's amazing because what it's saying is not even on the slide, but it is talking to the slide, which is
Perfect.
amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, so now you're stacked. So now you've created a process where you've stacked ChatGPT with
Mhm,
Gamma, with Pictory to create this
mhm,
video that you need to train your staff. So that's what I talk about when we talk about stacking tools.
That's really amazing. And then how do you keep like ChatGPT, and I don't know if Notion does this, but I found that like if I'm working on a client or I'm working on a use case for a different organization from mine, it'll pull my information and integrate it into theirs or vice versa. So what is it that you do to keep them siloed, so we're not like using it? Because what you just mentioned is exactly the direction I'm headed in. How can you create a use case for every employee and their level and their position and what they're doing, AI use case for them? And that example is a perfect way to do that. But then how do you keep that AI tool from pulling information from those different areas when you're trying to integrate one thing for a separate person?
So what do you mean, like you're integrating stuff? Because are you training?
Perfect. Yeah. I see like even in the chats, people are saying use projects, ask chat. That's exactly what I've done so for example, we had a study group this past weekend, and what I did was help somebody build a landing page for their braiding studio.
Mhm.
And so I made a whole completely different project. And I know you talked about like how you keep these things in like the portfolios, or I forgot exactly what you used it for.
Mhm.
But when you do that and you're like making an SOP for a different employee, like you mentioned, like I made a project for a completely different person, but it was pulling information that I already had in my database. So how do you keep those separate? Like, what is your example
Okay.
to use?
Yeah. So one thing I will say that you can do is in ChatGPT, create a project
Mm-hmm.
and then go to here. Let me just show you guys real quick because I know we're getting we're approaching time. So if you go in and you create a project, right? So you see here I
Mm-hmm.
have a whole bunch of projects, right? So if
Right.
you create a project up here on this little gear, click that and you want to say you want to click it to project only. So this way it
Oh,
doesn't pull
yes.
the memory from outside of the
Got
project. It
it.
sticks just to what you're doing.
Got it.
So
Got
that's
it.
what I would recommend.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Because then also in your project, what you can do is
Mhm.
you can, let me see if I have one here real quick, just so that I can show you guys. So here, see how it says 3 files up here in the top right corner? When you create a project, you can add information files to the knowledge base. So this way, every time you're creating something, right, that chat, you're going to pull that chat into that project, and your chat is going to pull from that information that you gave it. You can also tell it, this is how I want you to write my presentations. This is how so when you create a project, you can definitely prompt it as well. Daedrin, are we still here? Okay, here we go. You're welcome, Michelle. So any other questions? This, I think Daedrin dropped my contact, but this is if anybody's on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you need to get on LinkedIn, guys. If you are a business, even if you're a business professional, I believe everybody should be on LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica. Great presentation. I'm sure everyone will be patching up those leaks. And Jessica's information is in the chat if you haven't grabbed it yet, to connect with her on LinkedIn, as well as grabbing her AI framework. So go ahead and grab that. Thank you so much for making it the Learning Tube, and see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.